I'm really honored to be here. And to be honest, I'm not really, for many, many years at my job with Huntsville Animal Services, wasn't sure I would ever be able to be here. So it's really an honor. Just to tell you briefly, I'm a veterinarian. I graduated from Auburn 26 years ago. After about 10 years of practicing, I thought, oh my goodness, this is kind of boring. And the job to run the city animal control dog pound became available, and I thought it would be kind of a neat opportunity to interview. And literally about 9 months after we interviewed and went through the whole process, they called me up and offered me the job. And in that 9-month period, I'd educated myself so much about sheltering, I jumped at it. There's been many days that I have cried and struggled and wondered, what am I doing here? Those days it's much better now because we have been able to save a lot of our animals the last 4 years, but it has been a really difficult journey. I started at Huntsville Animal Services in 2002. So I just kind of want to show you a little snapshot. Yeah, Huntsville, Alabama is in North Alabama, Alabama and Mississippi and a lot of the states in the southeastern part of the United States are still struggling a lot, as you're probably aware. But Huntsville is kind of unique. We started with a military base right after World War II, where we created the rockets that took man to the moon. And so we do have a tremendous amount of engineers. We have a really nice economy. There are some really nice things about Huntsville. Just keep going, okay. So I'm gonna tell you, when I first started at Animal Services, it really felt a lot like a dog pound, and I try to be very respectful because I had a lot of really wonderful employees and coworkers that were just doing what they had been told to do. But it was a very uncomfortable environment for me. I had been working in veterinary practices where the animal was king, all the pets were part of members of the family, and so going into that environment, seeing the animals being scared and being treated, and again, very respectful because they just had not been trained or taught how to handle things. Sanitation, exercise, health care, all those things were just really, really lacking. And so the other problem we had is we had an enormous intake, and I think that's a really common problem with southeastern shelters. I wish I could kind of tell where all of you are from, but we were taking in close to 40 dogs and cats per every 1,000 citizens, which is really a lot of animals. I know that some of the places in Texas deal with 100 per 1,000 people, 60 per 1,000 people, but it's much nicer when you get to 20 and below per 1,000 individuals. The first slide that comes up shows that we took in about 8,200 pets and our live release rate was only about 30%. And I had been at the shelter for quite a period of time, and we were doing better as far as all the handling, but my live release rate was really suffering. Okay. So the next slide shows I'm sorry, it's not up yet, but the next slide shows what we just finished in 2018. And for the last 4 years, we have saved 90% of our intake of animals. What's unique is at one time, yay! So this is 2010, and this was last year. Mm-hmm. So I feel that way every day. I mean, and we have been able to save lives at 90% or greater for this was our 4th year, and we are still so honored and so excited to do that. So I just want to give you a little bit of a history, and based on what Ellen Jefferson shared this morning, I want to encourage you who may not be working in the municipal shelter but are trying really hard to create change. And there was a group of people, and one individual in particular, that understood that no kill could happen, and they stayed persistent with me and kept having a conversation with me, and I listened even though it threatened and I was scared. I wanted the same thing that they wanted, which was to save all the lives, but I also was terrified because I realized how resource lacking we were and how many problems we had. But this was the day that happened. Helped me a lot. I went to the No Kill conference in Washington, D.C., the very first one, and I cannot remember specifically what year that was, but I went and it was really encouraging, and I had read Nathan Winograd's book probably 3 different times. But in 2013, it was an August day, and a phone rang, picked it up, and it was one of my veterinary friends, and she said, hey, I've kind of got some bad news for you. And I said, oh no, and I just assumed it was going to be a parvo puppy. A puppy had broken with parvo. But it wasn't. She said this little dog, it was a young dog, she said its jaw's chattering and it's got some twitching between its ears. So of course, she said, I'm going to help you out. I'm going to do some diagnostic testing, but we both knew that most likely the dog had developed neurological distemper. So what I had done in the past is kind of gone on a restriction, and all our at-risk dogs, a lot of times we made them unavailable for adoption, which means that we had euthanized a lot of them. But this time, I wanted to try something different. And I got in my car and I went to my boss and I said, hey, and I explained to him what had happened, explained how serious the disease was. I said, but the shelter environment, all our dogs and cats at the shelter look good. Of course, the cats would. But we had about 100 dogs in the building. I said, they really look good. We've got a little normal respiratory, but let's call on the public to help because supposedly they really want to help us. And so that's what we did. We did news releases and press releases. We said we had a respiratory virus and that we needed adopters and fosters, that we needed to get every pet out of the building alive so that we could clean and ventilate and start over from scratch. And over the course of the next 5 days, every dog and every cat in the building left with either an adopter or foster. It was really a remarkable day, and it changed who I was and how I felt about no kill. So the neat thing is that puppy did lose its life, that little distemper puppy, which was tragic. But in all the adoptions and fosters, we explained we would help treat the pets, just take it, and we didn't get any other dogs develop any distemper signs. We had some kennel cough type issues, but we didn't have any more distemper. So I still don't know exactly what happened, but I'm glad it happened because it began us really digging in and saving lives. So this is our building, and I walked around the next weeks and months going, how can I turn this euthanasia machine into a life-saving machine? And remember, we had been making slow and steady progress, and I was going to persevere, man. I was going to stay, and it was really hard and heartbreaking many days, and it's not what I wanted this building to be, but I was going to hang in there. So here's kind of our roadmap, and there's not anything unique about these. You don't need to memorize them. But essentially, we had been trying to look at all the programs that we needed to have to save more lives. But after that August week in 2013, I took the dial, and some of these programs were on zero, I have to admit. We did not have very much, we had nothing going with community cats. But our adoption program, the dial may have been on 4, and I cranked it up to 10. The community cats, I cranked that one up to 1 or 2 and 3. And as you just kind of get I just turned the dial up real aggressively. So for us, being in Huntsville, Alabama, and this may be very unique, and I've talked to a lot of shelters that do great work, and their adoption fees are still significantly higher than ours, 2, 3, 4 times more. But we felt like we really needed to subsidize our adoption fees, and we definitely felt like that when we were dealing with population issues in our shelter, we needed to do fee waived. We do those every day. We've been doing them now for 5, 6 years. I've always felt pretty good about them. My staff had a lot of anxiety, and we have a little safety net in place that if there's a volunteer or a staff member that's working with someone that's trying to do any adoption, whether it's fee waived or lower prices, $35 is what we charge for most of our adult animals and $50 for the puppies and kittens. But if anybody's concerned, they'll come get someone from the management team, and we'll kind of interface with the adopter and the pet. And if we pick up on some really serious signs, we will stop the adoption. But I'd say 99 times out of 100, we go ahead and move forward with the adoption. We just talk to them about going ahead and doing a home visit, and we go ahead and schedule it. So foster to adopt, and I hope all of you have worked into this, but what we found is a lot of people were so worried about were their kids going to be okay with the dog. Was this dog that climbed fences going to stay in the privacy fence? Was the dog going to be dangerous with their cat? Was the cat going to be, all these different questions. So we do a 2-week foster to adopt. And on our adult dogs, we do exclude some pets just because they move so quickly. So we exclude all our kittens, all our puppies, and all our adult cats from the foster to adopt program because people will go ahead and adopt them and take the risk. So we use a lot of foster homes, and we put it on our Facebook page. We just went over, and a lot of you may have a lot more followers than this, but we just last week went over 30,000 followers on Facebook. It is our lifeblood. We need to figure out other ways to reach the public on a daily basis, but we love, love, love Facebook. So when we get in, we try really hard. The number one category we deal with on fosters is going to be those too young, and of course that tends to be kittens that have somehow gotten separated from their mother or bottle babies, and we just get them all into foster homes as fast as possible. These are some of the other categories we use for foster homes. We're open to any sort of foster to rehome, but we always try to get the at-risk populations into foster homes ASAP. So community cats, and I really liked what Dr. Jefferson said this morning about sheltered community cats. We had a lot of sheltered community cats dying in my facility, and so we cranked that dial up. Remember, we hadn't been doing much, so we cranked it up, and it's worked really well. And I agree. I believe Julie Levy was talking about Million Cat Challenge. If you get on their website and you follow all their principles, you do very, very well. But Community Cats is wonderful, and we feel so good about what we're doing with our program. Veterinary care, we do, I am a veterinarian. We try to treat all our pets. I'm pretty conservative. We don't have the funding to do a lot of fancy things, and we will periodically, but in general, we do treat our parvo cases. We'll treat anything that's sick, but because of funding issues, one of the things that we struggle, it's hard, but we have to do. If we have a humerus or a femur break, if a rescue can't take it and do the plating, they usually are going to have their leg amputated. We feel their lives saved. They very quickly get on the adoption floor. They get adopted really, really quickly. We treat all our kennel cough dogs, of course. And then 2 drugs that I just want to mention in case you have veterinarians and you want to go back. But we love Bravecto for all our skin dogs, even if we just think it's allergies. And then I love this drug named Cytopoint. It's an injection that works like Apoquel. And I just really love it. So many of these dogs come in the front door and you can tell they've been itching for like 4 years constantly. And I'll give them a Cytopoint injection before I give them their vaccinations. That's how much I love Cytopoint. They stop itching in 30 minutes. And it's very affordable. It's expensive, but it's very affordable. Helping clients. So this is a new big movement, and there's a slide that comes up a second up. I'm just going to go ahead and go, well, it's out of order, but that's okay. Pets for Life from Humane Society of the United States has some great handout on it, and I think every employee, whether it's people answering the phone as front office people or your dispatchers or your officers, your volunteers, it's a great manual for everyone to look through, but we need to help everybody. We need to help everybody. So 90% of our helping people is just being respectful and kind to them and giving them a spay, neuter, rabies voucher for free. But it has really changed so many things in our organization. We don't charge people. We do free redemption. Some people end up paying because they can. But if someone wants their cat or dog back, we will do a free redemption. We work really hard on being positive, not punitive. And our goal is that we're helping reshape all of our clients into better pet owners, and that they know we're there to help them, not hurt them. So Dr. Jefferson really believes, and I completely agree with her, you heard her testimony this morning about spay-neuter. One of the things that has really changed and made Lifesaving possible for me in Huntsville, Alabama, is that we have a program where we target exclusively low-income clients, pet owners that qualify by having Medicaid, anyone in their family, even if it's their child, that are on food stamps, that are on a federal disability, that WIC. And we've just been able to go with our low-income spay-neuter program that if you can show that you make less than $35,000 a year, but you get a spay or neuter for any number of animals in your household for $5. We also do grants. This is one that Rachel Ray through Best Friends did, and we're just now about to run out of money, but we did 400 surgeries. And this zip code, of course, is our highest intake zip code, so that's why we target it. So by targeting your high intake zip codes and by targeting your low income clients, you can see what I saw, which was an intake from 10,000 down to 5,000. Now it took a little bit of time, but my goodness, I can't imagine if it hadn't happened to us. So this shows the progress that my community has made. And I was there during that year. See that big peak? I was there. It was really depressing. But our low-income spay-neuter program started here. They had been doing just low-cost spay-neuter, but when we did low-income and we funded it the way we should, you want to do between 5 to 10 per every 1,000 citizens. So the math's pretty simple. We have 300,000 people in my jurisdiction, and so we were trying to hit between 1,500 and 3,000 low-income surgeries a year. And look at this. Look what's happened. Now, we've kind of flattened out the last 4 years. We've been right at 5,000, and we think some of that is because people have more confidence. We feel like a lot of pets are coming to my facility from other counties. That's the Pets for Life program that's so great, and there's probably other models out there, but this is the one I used. So I had to throw my dogs in there. I'm a little embarrassed because they're all little, but my husband gave me this wheelbarrow for Christmas one day. We have horses, and I have a pet cow. And I put them all in there, but somehow I got old. I'm not real sure what happened, but I started, they all came from the shelter, and I love all my dogs. They're all named after rodents. So I have rat dog, marmot, bunny, and squirrel. And then Coco came with her name as a 15-year-old poodle, and she lived to be 20. I've just lost her. But our volunteers are fabulous. I love every personality volunteer. Volunteers that come in and do anything you ask. They just always obey all the rules. But I kind of like the rowdy ones, like the ones that come in and say, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? The grumpy ones, they're just so valuable, and they really help tremendously with our their intake. The input that they give is really important. We have a tremendous amount of community support. And we had a lot of community support even before we hit that 90%. So even when we were saving 60, 70, 80%, community was really good to us. But they love us even more now, of course. This is they raised $3,000 for us to have rawhide treats for our dogs. A lot of people boo because I give rawhides treats, but I just feel like they're so beneficial to the mental well-being of my dogs, and I've just literally have never had any problems with rawhides. These are some of the little things that have really helped me make the shelter a more humane place for my staff and definitely for the animals. And I hope that these are things that you can encourage your municipal shelter to do. But we know now what our capacity for care is, and probably anyone that's inside an animal control facility, you kind of know how many animals you really, when you're getting above that amount. For us, when we go above 60 dogs, it starts getting really uncomfortable, and when we go above 40 cats. Now, I had always been really skeptical of this capacity for care because I thought, well, if you go over that number of animals, what happens to them? What we do is when we're getting into the point where we have surpassed our capacity for care, and there mathematically is a way you figure exactly out what your magic number is. And you can go to the shelter medicine websites associated with the University of Wisconsin at Madison and UC Davis and go through the formula and find out based on how many kennels you have and how many employees. But what we do when our capacity for care is being exceeded is we try to do a special and we reach out to the media because we don't want, and I know it's really important for your staff to be comfortable, because when they're stressed, they don't clean as well, they may not go as slowly as you want, they may not be as gentle as you want. And so it's good for all of us, for us to stay within our capacity for care. So we will do a special, reach out to the media, and we've had really good success with that for 4 years, and we hope to continue to have success. The other thing we do is 7 days a week. It's much better during the weekdays, is we do daily rounds. So we have a group of managers based on who's there that day. We go and look every pet in the face. Who are you, how are you, and what's up with you? And that's just about getting them through the system fast and making sure they're getting the care they need. And we catch things that maybe we wouldn't have missed. So it's daily rounds, just like physicians do in hospitals. We do that at the shelter. And I will say that Monday through Friday, we do a better job. On Saturdays and Sundays, somebody goes and looks at all of them and just makes sure we're kind of in a holding pattern. But we're doing so much better moving the animals through the shelter. Daily rounds have allowed us to have a length of stay on our dogs, which is 8 days. It used to be 21 days. And it's sad because a lot of those dogs did lose their life at day 7, and which would drop it down. So that shows you we had dogs staying a long time. And our length of stay on cats now is 5 days. And we're surprised it's that long, but some cats do end up staying 2 and 3 weeks. But our cats move fast. So this is one of the things that I never wanted to be, and I still struggle with, and I don't know. It's Gary Petronik, I believe is the way he pronounces his name. He's a veterinarian. He first came out with this chart, and it's associated with hoarding cases. And I think it also can work really well for shelters. And all these are the 5 freedoms associated with what we want for our pets and for ourselves. And I want to be up here. Always want to be up here. I want my pets, even though they're in cages, and even though they don't have a family, I always want the quality of their life to be excellent. And that is my goal. And that's when we exceed my capacity for care, I know I'm putting that at risk. And it's really important for us to try, as we continue to refine no kill, that we really put this in front of the face of all our employees and all our directors and say we want to make sure they have a good quality of life. We keep getting better at this. Every 2 to 3 months, I think, God, we're doing better at this. So some of the other things that I did that I believe were really helpful for me, and I'm going to wrap this up, is we started doing, probably in 2013, we started meeting weekly with the managers. And someone said, well, God, every week, that's a whole lot. And I said, yeah, but we're going to miss a few weeks here and there, Christmas, Thanksgiving. But in a given 52-week year, I bet we meet 48 of those weeks, and we talk for about 90 minutes. When I have skeptics on my manager's team, and I would say the same thing, is I send them on fact-finding mission, and my favorite story is my field supervisor, Virgie Graham, was very skeptic about community cats, SNR, return to field, and I sent him for a week to Jacksonville to ride with the 3 different groups there that do such great work together, the Spay-Neuter Clinic, the Animal Control, and the Humane Society. He also took his family, and they went to the beach a little bit every day and stayed the weekend. And he came back and he said, I'm not real sure how they do it, but they all seem really positive about it, so let's do it too. I work to everybody's skill set and strengths, and I think it's really important. When I hire people, I always kind of think this is what I want them to be doing, but if I find a new discovery, like I found an officer that was so good with chameleon that I was able to move him over and create a position for him because I wanted my data to be perfect. And that leads me right into study the data, and it goes back to exactly what Ellen Jefferson was saying this morning. I was looking at my spreadsheet and looking at what animals and what populations were dying, and I was going after those. And that's where that community cat was at a 0. We had a lot of cats dying, and so I had to crank that dial way up. The other thing that changed my life and really helped us is I never say no to consults. Target Zero came in and did a beautiful job. Target Zero, the next team has come in and consulted with me. I've had shelter medicine residents come in and talk to me, and I've been involved with shelter medicine fellowships. I'm always trying to get better, and I think it's really important to say yes to consultations. Money, and this is one of those, we definitely needed a lot more money, but I have a lot of regrets because I made a lot of assumptions about my leadership with the mayor and my council that they didn't want to fund me more money, and now I really regret that I didn't go every 12 weeks and say, hey, if you gave me X amount of money, I can do this, and what that means is more lives saved. And I know that they would have given me more money a decade ago. So important when someone puts a price on a program that's not happening, go and try to find the money for them. Or if you're inside the shelter, go find the money. The money is there. So, and just very briefly, this is kind of, I always compared myself to the turtle, you know, the story, the parable about the tortoise and the hare that they raced. The hare challenged the tortoise to a race. And of course, we all know the hare took off and could have very easily won. But the tortoise ended up winning because he was steady and he persevered. And I'd always thought that was me. And so when I kept hearing no kill from my advocate groups or my activist groups that said you should be able to do it overnight, you know, in a day, I was like, yeah, but at least I'm being slow and steady. I don't want to hurt animals, you know. And so I've gone and read a lot about the parable, and you can just put in tortoise and hare parable, the rest of the story, and it's really amazing. But in one of the parables I read, the hare challenged the tortoise to another race, and of course worked really hard, and because he had all that talent, he won, which he should have won. And then the tortoise then challenged the hare to a race and said, hey, by the way, I want to change the course. And there happened to be a river on the course, and so the tortoise got to the river and just swam, you know, the rabbit got to the river first, of course, running fast. Tortoise got to the river, the rabbit couldn't swim, so the tortoise swam across and won the race. And then the rabbit challenged, I know this is kind of silly, but he challenged him again, and they teamed up. They became a team, and they started winning races everywhere. And when they would be on the ground, the flat ground, the tortoise would get on the rabbit's back, and when they would go across rivers, the hare would get on the tortoise's back. And I just think that that's how we're going to evolve as we move forward with this no kill. Is everybody needs to come together, and we need to figure out how to be a team and how to build each other's strengths and weaknesses into making sure the animals are leaving alive. Oh, I didn't put my last slide up here. Anyway, we made it this year too, and I have my data. And we still are working on those numbers of the animals that are being euthanized. But we're really proud with the progress we made. And just one quick thing about this. One of my new employees, the one that I changed from an officer to my data, he looked at this. He had not been at the shelter very long, and he said, oh my gosh, in 2011, you euthanized more animals than we even take in. It was really humbling. So I'm glad I persevered. I wished I had been more hare. I wished I had gotten things done sooner. And I'm very inspired by the work that was done here in Austin and the work that was done with KC Pet Project, and I was paying attention, and I also really appreciate the local no-kill advocates, especially one individual that really didn't give up on pushing me. And so I hope that you will continue to push your leaders. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me, and I love birds too, of course, and there's 3 yellow cardinals out in the United States, and one's in Birmingham. Beautiful. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jenny Sims, and I'm the Executive Director for Southern Pines Animal Shelter. I'm going to be talking to you about our life-saving journey today, but I guess I'll start by telling you a little bit about my journey and how I came to be at Southern Pines. I worked previously for a technology nonprofit. I did technology training and worked in schools and at-risk communities to help people pick up technology skills. And about 7 years into that job, we lost funding, and so I found myself unemployed. I had a degree in photojournalism, and so my mom was very sure that I was going to move into a park and live there for the rest of my life. And she kept trying to convince me that I should just go back to school and become a teacher. I watched a lot of Netflix, felt really sorry for myself, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to go out here and figure out what this world has in store next for me. And so I found our local animal shelter, Southern Pines. I had lived in Hattiesburg my whole life, so I was familiar with the shelter. I took my camera out and said I'd like to volunteer, I'd like to help take pictures. They had a wonderful volunteer group set up to do that, and I just fell in love with the shelter. I started photographing one day a week, and then I would find myself sneaking back to it for a second day and a third day, and then I was like, oh, could I also make videos and what else could I do? And then I realized that I didn't want to find a job or live in a park. I wanted to just be at the shelter all the time. And so I knew the only way to make that okay at family Christmas was if I actually got a job there. And so I became the volunteer coordinator, and about 3 months later applied to be the manager, and from there have kind of progressed to where I am today, which is the executive director. So that started back in November of 2013, and that's when I found where I belong. So Southern Pines is a nonprofit organization, 501c3. We operate an open admission shelter, a spay and neuter clinic, and a thrift shop, but today I'm mostly going to talk to you about our work at the shelter level. We have 3 municipal contracts, 2 with city animal controls, and 1 is just with a county to accept their residents' pets. But we accept animals statewide, and the reason for this is that as we look at our state, we see a huge amount of need and not enough of us available to accept the pets that are coming in. And so we felt like it was really important that there be resources for everyone in the state, and we have just always gladly accepted animals from around the state, which right now our annual intake is about 8,000. A little over 2,000 of those actually come from our contracted service areas. So we'll talk a little bit more about it later, but we also pull in about 2,500 from neighboring shelters and rescues, and then the rest of those come from throughout the rest of the state. Organization-wide, we have about 50 staff members, and about 30 of those, including our veterinarian and management, work at the shelter level. And our annual budget is $1.4 million. About $750,000 of that is for shelter operations. Okay, so Southern Pines in 2010 was a different place than it is today. We were taking in over 9,000 pets. I have a little star by that because we weren't doing a great job of tracking our numbers. Things weren't always getting put in the computer. Maybe a litter of 10 puppies was just 1 puppy in the computer. So probably we were taking in a lot more than what our records now tell us. We were adopting out a little less than 2,000, transferring out a little less than 300. The big number, though, that you can see is that we were euthanizing almost 7,000 animals a year, and so our save rate was only at 28%, and it was a struggle. Things were not going well. We weren't saving as many lives as we wanted to save, and we weren't sure what to do about it. We had some restrictive adoption policies. We didn't trust our community. Community didn't trust us. Once the pets made it into the shelter, we were like, all right, you're going to stay here until you die, but at least we know you're going to be safe, right? And it created barriers to adoption. It made it hard for people to come in and to tell us what their challenges were, made it hard for us to move pets into their homes. And because of that, we were overwhelmed. We were taking in a huge number of animals. We couldn't get them out the door. We were stressed. We were sad. We just couldn't see an answer in sight. And so all of those things combined made us really untrusting, really isolated, and prevented our community from being able to step up and really help us. We needed a big change. So we had a complete staff turnover shortly after 2010, I believe, 2011. So anyway, we had a big staff turnover, and we really started to look at what we could change. How could we improve our life saving? What were policies that we needed to look at? We put a focus on customer service. So we wanted to figure out how to bring our community in, how to make them feel like a part of the team. We had a goal to save more lives, and we were going to do it together. We are going to go through some of the things that we did, but we started asking why and looking at the way that we had always done things, and started trying to figure out if there was a different way that we could do things to save more lives. And then we looked at our data to target populations that needed our life-saving attention, and so we kind of took those bite-sized challenges on one at a time. Okay, so some new approaches. We tried to remove barriers to adoption. So we'll talk a little bit more about open adoptions, managed intake, foster programs. A lot of things that you hear over and over again are the things that we should be doing. So we're going to try to take a little bit of a deeper dive into some of the things that we did and some of the challenges we faced, and then kind of how we made them work for us. Okay, so part of our process was a reimagining of what our shelter should be. We repurposed rooms, we repurposed positions, we kind of took a look at the way that we were operating, and if there was a population we wanted to save, how could we reimagine the way that we were approaching that population. I should say that before we did some of this stuff, we had already made some pretty big changes in terms of the way that we housed animals, in terms of our open adoptions, in terms of trying to make transport move a little faster. So we didn't go from euthanizing 7,000 animals to we're going to get rid of our euthanasia room and just treat parvo. It was a little bit slower process. But eventually we were able to repurpose, and so now our euthanasia room serves to isolate and treat parvo. We got rid of some storage space where we were just hoarding just a whole bunch of junk that we thought we would one day need, and we just never ever will. And we created an enrichment area. We had a space that was kind of used to collect employees and volunteers when we were chit-chatting. And so we kicked that out and turned it into our foster world. And so now it's a place where our foster coordinators can train fosters on how to do critical care for animals and walk them through the foster process. And it's a place where they feel really welcome too. We went from having a foster and volunteer coordinator that was the same person to 3 different people, because we recognized that these were the ways that we were going to get animals out of the shelter and increase opportunities for them. We created an adoption coordinator position, which we had never had before. We just kind of took it, whoever caught the adopter, that's who helped them coordinate that adoption. And so now we have someone who's focused on putting animal stories out there, calling potential adopters, keeping an eye out for pets that are a good match for people who have come in to visit us. We have a cat coordinator, a behavior coordinator, a surrender counselor, and a media team. And so none of these were positions that existed prior to they started to exist and grow kind of after that, 2010, 2012, and have grown since then. So change was really scary for us at first. We had to really challenge ourselves within the organization as we explored new methods, things that we had maybe never tried before, or that we were afraid of how they would work or what would happen. We really had to question ourselves and hold ourselves accountable and figure out what we were afraid of and maybe how we could try some new things. When I think about the changes that we make, I credit the wonderful, wonderful staff and the volunteers that I have, because they're passionate and smart and incredible people, and I just had the benefit of not having a clue what I was doing. And so I was able to walk in and just ask them to teach me, or do you have an idea about this, or if you could do this in any way that you wanted to, how would you do it? Because I was going to live in a park, and now I'm here, and so you just let me know what your ideas are, and we'll try them. So that's a little bit. We got lucky that I didn't know what I was doing, and I had some really intelligent people around me. We did have more staff turnover, kind of as we would hit different levels, make different changes, push a little farther, decide to try something to impact a different population. We grew in different directions from some of our staff, and so it was really accepting that was okay. We lost volunteers, we lost staff members, and it wasn't because I think that our end goal wasn't the same. I think that it just, when we made a commitment that this is what we're going to do, this is the direction that we're moving, it had to be okay for sometimes for us to part directions with people and grow. And that was tough too, because in the work that we do, we care for the people that are part of our team and that we work with. And So to be able to accept that we're going to move in a direction, and sometimes that means that we're not all moving in that direction together, was something that was a challenge for us and was scary. We were super scared of what our community would think. If we tried something and it didn't work, or if something went wrong, if we failed in some way. And what I think we had to realize is that our community already sort of didn't think great things about us all the time. And so we had to try something to win their trust back and to get them back on our side. And we were a little bit scared of how we would change their expectations of who we were going to be. That we were here to try new things and to save lives, and that we weren't going to always be able to say yes, or we weren't always going to be able to say we were right. And we weren't always going to be able to say, sure, leave this animal with us. We were going to have to let them know, hey, if you want to be a part of Lifesaving, this is the different option, and we need your help if we're going to do it. So, Southern Pines today, our intake is around 8,000. I mentioned previously about 2,500 of those animals are coming in from partner shelters and rescues to either participate in our transport program or our adoption programs. Our adoptions have grown a little bit, but you'll see that they haven't just like skyrocketed from where they were in 2010. We do operate a really robust transport program, so we're transporting about 4,000 to 5,000 animals every year. And our euthanasia has dropped to 140, and that's cases that we just feel like we have a responsibility to their quality of life to stop, or animals who come in really injured. I don't have to explain it to you guys, you know what I'm saying. So our save rate is at 96.8%, and we've been able to maintain a rate above 90% for 4 years now. 4 years now, and so we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the programs and how we got there, but it was really exciting to see us finally arrive at that point. So Southern Pines today. Okay, so open adoptions and counseling through conversation. Every one of our staff members is trained to adoption counsel. We do have an adoption coordinator, but we want to make sure that whoever someone encounters on the property is equipped and ready to get them to adoption. We don't want them to feel like they have to wait, or that they have to kind of have that formal interview process. We want people to be able to have those conversations and get the animals moving. We also really worked hard to change our staff and volunteer perspectives on adopters and about open adoption. So we don't do home visits, we don't do really delayed applications, except sometimes in the case of a big medical issue, just so that our veterinarian can talk to them a little bit more fully. But and we make a point of having quarterly staff days where we really revisit some of the topics, some of the things that are hesitations for people, and talk to them about kind of how we can get through some of those subjects. It's really important for us to make sure that we are creating a community that we want our pets to be adopted into. And so we know that when we tell an adopter no, they're still going to get a pet, right? They're going to go on the buy sell trade pages, they're going to get one from their neighbor, they're going to get one from somewhere. But if we can be a part of that conversation with them, if we can help them understand heartworms, if we can help them get hooked up with our clinic wellness program, if we can be the people that they think to call when they have a question about something related to their pet, then we can help to make a community where our pets are safe, and it doesn't matter if they're free to adopt, and it doesn't matter if they have issues, and it doesn't matter if their home isn't exactly what my pets live like. If we can create a place where we're communicating together and people feel safe asking questions, then we can do our job to complete really successful adoptions. And so that's kind of our goal every time. So it's really hard to deny an adoption outright. A lot of times the answer is just a little bit more counseling and conversation and providing more resources. We just discount the heck out of adoption fees as much as we possibly can. The summer after I came to the shelter, our medical director approached me. She was like, hey, you've been here for just 3 months. I was thinking we'd do the ASPCA challenge. What do you think? I was like, I don't even know what that is. Great, let's do it. And we did. And so we just, for summer, we just tried everything that anybody ever wanted to try. Got an idea for an adoption special? Let's do it. Not sure we can afford to fee waive cats for a week? Let's try it and see, and we'll figure it out. And so we just tried literally everything that we could and ended up increasing our lives saved that summer by like 1,400. And so it was way more than what we anticipated happening. And we were like, well, now we can't go back, right? So it was just kind of the starting point for us. So any kind of special we can come up with, if, like Dr. Shepard said, if we start to see ourselves creeping up to that uncomfortable number, we're like, all right, who's got an idea for an adoption special? Let's do one. And so it really has engaged our staff and our community, and they wait for them, and they come in and they tell us, oh, I adopted this pet during your Black Friday adoption event. And so it really makes them excited about what we have coming up and about the pets that are available. Okay, and so then our foster programs probably blew up the most because once we started like figuring out some of these other things, once we were like adopting out as many as we could possibly do, and we were talking to our community and we were doing all that, we just started looking at which populations still needed our help. And they were animals that maybe weren't like right away desirable, right? So somebody's thinking about them, and I'll come back, and I don't know how this will work out, and we haven't been able to close the deal. They were some of our bigger dogs who maybe were showed a little rough in their kennels. They were our dogs that had just like too much energy and not enough space to get it out. And so we started just looking at our foster program and seeing how we could impact those populations through foster programs. And so one of those is our slumber party program. We were kind of had somehow gotten to this place where we felt like an adoption was a very clear thing. You come in, you meet the animal, you decide to adopt them, you fill out your profile, and they're yours. And one day we were just like, why do we do that? Why can't we let somebody test drive? And so many other organizations do it already. And so it was just like one of those things that we just kept doing because we had been doing it. And so we started our slumber party program so people can come in and pick out a pet and take them home for 5 days if it's a cat, I think, and 3 days if it's a dog. And we worry about fixing them when they come back, and we worry about finalizing all the paperwork when they come back, and we just get a little bit of information from them and we send them on their way. And in the end, we found that 85% of those slumber parties ended in adoption, and a lot of times it wasn't the puppies or the poodles or whatever. People were really test driving animals that they had some hesitation about, and so we were seeing some of our tougher or longer length of stay dogs head out on those slumber parties. We tried that program for 30 days, and the one tweak that we did make was we required that cats be fixed before they could go, not because they were escaping or people were not bringing them back or whatever. It was just that it kind of dragged on because they were like, oh, it's really hard for me to get the cat in the car. Could I extend my slumber party for a week? And so it was easier to just go ahead and fix them. And since, oh, look what I did. Since adoption is really our main outlet for cats, we just fix them as soon as they're able to now, and so it's not a real big issue. Adoption ambassadors are for our dogs who have barrier reactivity, who maybe are showing really poorly in the shelter. They get adopted by a foster, and that foster just takes them on until they get adopted. And so that's something that has worked really well for us. Dog's Day Out is what it sounds like. Just come in, check out a dog, take them out for the day. This has been really helpful for our dogs that just bark all day long, because they go to Starbucks, they watch Netflix on somebody's couch, and they come back and they're just super tired. And so we knew that would be a benefit of the program, and we were excited when we launched that. What we didn't realize was that they were going to get famous, like all of the people who come in for Dog's Day Out. And you don't have to be a volunteer already. You can come in fresh off the street and just be like, I need to hug a dog today, and we're going to send you out with one. And so what we would find is they would get popular, and people would come in and get sad when their favorite dog was already out for the day. And so we'd have to add more dogs to the program. And people had like favorites, and, you know, dogs would be out every day, and then they were posted on social media, and then you would hear people like chit-chatting about them. They would get nicknames that like the staff didn't know. So somebody would be like, is Queen Francine gone today? And we're like, who's Queen Francine? And they're like, oh, that's just what the Dogs Day Outers are calling her. And so it was a program that really impacted the dogs positively, but really engaged the community in a way that we didn't expect. And people were excited, and they were talking about it. And we had our very first dog that went out on Dogs Day Out, went to class with a university student, and the professor ended up adopting the dog. And we were just like, okay, this might work. We're going to keep doing this. And so it's been a really cool program. And it kind of transformed into Dogs Weekend Away. So when we would see a dog particularly benefiting from the program, we would say, hey, does anybody want to actually extend this and do it for a weekend and just like take as many pictures as you can possibly take and put it on social media and make a video. And it's been really helpful for those dogs that do so well on Dogs Day Out and so poorly in the shelter that we can really use that extra time to highlight them and get them out. Excuse me. And then we just like started asking for help more often, and we stopped telling our fosters how much they could help us. We had kind of gotten into this rhythm where we wanted to let them help us, but only to the amount that we thought that they were able to help us, and so we stopped doing that. We created a foster first responders program, and so what this program was born out of our goal, which was to decrease our like neonatal kitten mortality rate this last summer. And so now what happens is something urgent walks through the door, we send out mass text to our foster first responders, and we ask them to commit to life-saving supportive care for 48 hours. If you can take this animal on for 48 hours, we can commit to finding a plan for it and a placement for it, and we don't need you to keep it until it's ready to be adopted. We need 48 hours where we know it's not going to be in the shelter alone, where we know it's going to be taken care of, and we'll teach you everything you need to know. And this summer we found out that like our fosters want to like be awesome. They just do. They want to do the things that we haven't let them do in the past, and so they're learning how to give medicines. They're learning how to give fluids. They're learning how to do, you know, supportive care for fading kittens and fading puppies. And the moment that kind of strikes me is we had this foster who, she was a first-time foster, and she had come in and taken these two really young puppies that were struggling and not doing that well, and she came back to the shelter because she said, I think that this one's crashing. And so our shelter manager had started fading puppy protocols, and the volunteer sat there with her for 20 minutes, and then she said, hey, I can do everything that you're doing. Can I just take over? And it was kind of like this aha moment, like, why do we have to do it? She wants to, she's invested, and she did, and she took the puppy home, and the puppy lived, and she has been back for more, and so now she has a skill, and she has a passion, and she has a success story, and she is a better tool for life-saving for us. And so that was really an important program for us to take on, because not only does it let the fosters help us more, but it changed the way that we looked at our community in one more way, that we have to stop telling them how much they can help us and let them help us save lives as much as they want to. I don't know why I put all the kittens here. I think I was like tired a little bit when I was making this, and I was like, what did we really need fosters for? And it really was all the kittens. Our goal for Lifesaving and what we were missing was that we still had a lot of kittens not getting into foster and getting sick, and you know, we wanted more of them to live, and so we put out videos about not taking kittens away from their mothers. We posted as soon as we knew that kittens might be coming in for the day. We started a kitten foster waiting list. So like January, when all these people were coming in like, I want to adopt a kitten, I'm ready for a kitten, and we're like, we don't have any yet. We're like, let me put you on this waiting list, and we can call you as soon as some come in, and we'll be looking for fosters, and then you have first dibs on adoption. And they were like, yeah, cool, sign me up. So all the kittens is really what that bullet point is just, if you even like the way that kittens look, we tried to get you to foster them, and it really worked. So we asked for help. We asked people to join our foster squad, and last year we had 40,037 foster care days, and that was days that all those animals weren't in the shelter. And so when we look at that big number total, we're like, okay, it's worth it. All the new programs and all of the getting animals out, and every staff member knows how to send an animal into foster, and they know the steps, and so it's not all on one person. And fostering has become a beginning part in an animal's story, not a reaction to something that's happened to the animal, and so that's been a really important change for us. I don't actually know how I'm doing on time. Let me make sure. I'm still okay? Yes? Okay. I think that's a thumbs up. Okay. So the other thing that changed, and this changed a lot before I even arrived at Southern Pines, but we've kind of continued to tweak it as we've gone, is we changed from having just everything walk in the door as soon as it walked in the door and whenever people wanted to walk in the door, to an appointment-based surrender system, and we take in surrender fees for that service. And so what that allowed us to do was kind of be prepared for the animals that were walking through the door. And so we don't manage those surrenders based on like how many spaces we have. We manage them based on like how long it takes us to process an animal into the system for the day. So we still have a little bit of pressure to, like, if we're a little bit full, to move animals into foster or to encourage people to hold on to them. But it does let us know that we're not going to end up taking in 100 animals one day and 0 animals the next day. We can kind of spread it out. And at first, it was tough for our community to digest that, but as we have kind of had time pass, the conversations that we have with them are a little bit different. And so we say, hey, we don't want any animals to have to be euthanized today. We can fit you in tomorrow. It would be even more helpful if you just let us vaccinate your puppies and if you could hold on to them for a week until we can get them out. And so we just started like communicating the heck out of people, and they liked the information. They liked the transparency. They liked that we were like, this isn't just a rule to be a rule. Here's how it helps us save this animal's life. And so we offer volunteer and foster opportunities in lieu of a surrender fee. And generally appointments at their like longest wait time are booked out about 2 weeks. Our contract areas do have the ability to say, I really need to leave this animal today. I can't do an appointment. But the vast majority of them are happy to make those appointments if it means that their animal's going to have a better chance. So we have a surrender counselor who is the only person who talks to them and schedules those appointments. That's a change that we made because she wants to be talking to them before they ever get on the books. So if she can delay that appointment, if she can offer some feedback, if she can offer some resources before they've ever made the schedule, before they've ever made an appointment, she's talking to them about that first. And so that's been a really helpful part of this process, because kind of, you know, once you're like, I need to surrender this animal to the shelter, I've got an appointment on the books, even if you haven't made it to the shelter yet, it's kind of already started to be done in your mind. And so having her be able to talk to them from the very beginning step, they're already forming a relationship, and they ask for their surrender counselor. They know who the person they're talking to is. We get thank you notes all the time to the surrender counselors for the time that they've taken. And so it's just one more step in building that relationship. Okay, and then for the very first time ever, like, I don't have any numbers on this because it just started in January. We are no longer accepting community cats, friendly or feral, from people bringing them in to drop them off. We're diverting them to our spay and neuter clinic. It is now cheaper to get them fixed and put them back than it would have been to surrender them to the shelter, and so we're no longer accepting them. When we took a look at the cats that were coming in, they were overwhelmingly from outside of our service areas, and a lot of them were free roaming outside cats that, like, well, some of them were friendly enough, but like they weren't begging to come to a shelter. They were like just living their lives. And they were getting sick, and we were getting overcrowded, and we were just like having a free cat day every day of the week, basically, and we just couldn't keep up. And so this year, for the first time, we are diverting those to our spay and neuter clinic, and we're not accepting them into the shelter setting. And so if anybody wants to like catch my contact information at the end of my presentation, I'm happy to let you know how it goes. So far, the community's been receptive to it. Once we start talking to them about cats and how they do live in just like their lives regularly, and what options we can provide for them, and how we don't have to over rescue them, and how the shelter's not the best place for them. And with a little bit of counseling and conversation and honesty with them about what the situation for a community cat in a shelter is, people have been really receptive. And so we're hoping that that's going to be a successful program. But I put the little star and the new there so you can follow up with me, and if it fails completely, I'll tell you. But hopefully it'll be really successful. Okay, and so then building community relationships. I'm switching over to our spay and neuter clinic just a little bit here. We opened a spay and neuter clinic in 2009 and completed, since then, over 58,000 low-cost or fee-waived surgeries, which has just been super helpful in bringing our intake down. I know that it looks like our intake isn't that much down from what I said it was in 2010, but it gives us a little bit of power to make decisions about our intake, so we're not just seeing them come in from, I can't read that, 10 minutes. Oh my gosh, I gotta go faster. We're seeing them come in from maybe other facilities that need assistance, from maybe other communities, and we're not kind of having this overload coming in from our local community. And we have just been doing low-cost wellness for about a year now, and so that's just been one more step to build relationships with our community members. And we're actually we're funneling our adopters directly into that program so that we know that the animals got access to at least that first veterinary care visit. And so the idea for a lot of people is you're like transition into new pet parentship. You have this wellness package to fall back on, and then we kind of help you move into a full service vet that kind of fits your needs. And so that's been going really well. We actually today hosted a heartworm prevention clinic, and so people came in to get their pets tested, and I've been looking at it on Facebook, and it seems like it had a good turnout. But just those community events to build those relationships. I'm not going to stop here for very long. Just reiterate, anybody in our community who is working to make people or pets' lives better, we want to find a way to work with them so that we're not doubling up on work, and we can maybe reach new populations together. Community cats. I am not going to talk more about the no intake of community cats. I am going to tell you that this is an area where like we've still got work to do. We kind of had always been taking in and euthanizing feral cats, and when we realized we didn't want to do that anymore, we started our Barn Buddies program. And so it's one where, you know, we have a waiting list of people, and so if we can't TNR or divert a cat and it does end up in the shelter, we have somebody who's willing to take it on to be a barn cat. That's my barn cat, Tipsy. I'm sorry, not Tipsy, Shimmy Shake. They both have movement-related names, but and so after the barn cat program, we approached our animal control, and they're not quite ready to just do all-out return to field yet, but we did make the compromise that we would present people with an option. And so we still have work to do there. Our ultimate goal is that any community cat that gets picked up just gets fixed and vaccinated and put back. Right now, the public has the choice. They get to say, yes, I want this cat back, or I understand that this cat may be euthanized, and overwhelmingly they're choosing to have them put back. And so we're keeping up with those addresses and all those people's names, and working with the city to see what that next step can be for us to just kind of make it a blanket policy. Transport, I'm going to move really quickly through because I am running out of time. We have 12 source partner shelters and rescues. We've transported more than 15,000 dogs and cats since starting transport. We do that through our own program as well as through partnerships. We were longtime rescue wagon partners through PetSmart Charities. We learned just a ton about transport from them, and so now we've been able to kind of take those lessons learned, start our own program, kind of grow it with continued just like support and mentorship from them. And also we're ASPCA relocation partners, but we do transport a large number of animals through our own program as well. The story for us was that we had limited resources, we had high euthanasia rates, and it seemed like our adoptions were stagnant. And so we really wanted to figure out how to increase opportunities for pets without displacing pets in the communities where they were going to. So we have in-state and out-of-state partners, and what this allows us to do is by working together, we really get a diverse mix of pets that our receiving partners are then able to help place, and so everybody's pets are able to move a little bit more quickly because we're drawing from a larger pool of animals and aren't overwhelming partners with just the same kind of animal that might stagnate in their population. We wanted to make sure that it didn't impact either population negatively, so we didn't want to send all of our puppies away and have no puppies for local adoption because we do want to build a community that wants to adopt. And we wanted to make sure that we weren't overwhelming our community partners with pets that they already had in their community, and we didn't want to displace those community animals. So we try to start all of those relationships the way that we approach relationships with our community and with our partners, through honesty and transparency and teamwork. Destination is really key for us, so we don't want to transport to places like Florida that already have an overpopulation of pets that are still being euthanized in shelters. And so it's important to us that when we look at a destination, we really try to talk openly with the community members openly with those destination partners about what things are like in their community and what might be a challenge for them. And so through that transport partnership, we've been able to make a lot of new friends in other animal welfare groups in our state. It's mutually beneficial. We host adoption events together. We swap. We play to each other's strengths. We understand that we're all coming to the table with skills and a common destination, even if the way that we travel to that destination is a little bit different and we don't always take the same roads, that if we can save more lives working together, then of course we should. There's room for everyone at the table, and every life saved is a victory, and that was not always true for our community. We didn't always have as many friends in rescue partners and other shelters that we worked with, and so that's been just, I can't overstate it, a great life-saving accomplishment for us to be a friend that our neighboring shelters can pick up the phone and talk to. Okay, and so just like we're just the most thrifty, and I know that I'm going to run out of time, but I really feel like this is something that I can't overstate. When we looked at our budget and how many lives we wanted to save and all the changes that we wanted to make, we just got as thrifty as we possibly could. Every time that Maddie's Fund launches apprenticeships, all of my staff is applying for them because it's free opportunities to learn, and they always come back with some cool program. Dogs Day Out, because of a Maddie's Fund apprenticeship. Our kitten ideas for kitten bottle feeding fosters and foster first responders and all those things were born from apprenticeships, and they're opportunities that we don't have to find extra room in the budget for because the national groups are making it happen. When PetSmart or Petco host a national adoption weekend and they offer grant funding for completing a certain number of adoptions or bringing a certain number of animals out, we're like, how can we make that go as far as possible, right? We adopted out 10 animals that were already fixed and didn't cost us anything at their adoption fees, so we can waive extra adoption fees, and all the money that we get from going to this adoption event, we're going to use it to waive adoption fees. And the innovation grants, things that maybe we're a little bit budgetarily scared to try, we apply for an innovation grant. I just can't overstate, there's a lot of opportunities being made out there by national organizations, and just I encourage you to look at it like you're a kid with a $10 allowance, and you really want to buy a video game and you got to figure out how to weasel some extra allowance out by taking advantage of these opportunities, because they've been just immensely helpful for us to be able to take advantage of. Okay, so the last thing, this is my last slide, I promise. I've talked about a lot of programs, but in terms of just like ideas and like a culture change that happened for us, our big focus areas are customer service. If you don't have room to be kind to our community and to our customers, then you don't have room to be on our team. And that's an expectation that we put in place, and it's something that we don't waver on at all. Customer service is important because if our community is going to see us as a resource, we have to be people that they can trust, and we have to be a place that they're not afraid to come. We have to be a place that brings them happiness and that brings them security and safety. And so customer service is non-negotiable. Every single staff member and volunteer on our property has to display that. Transparency, we mess up like all the time. And we let people know when we make a mistake and how we've learned from it and what we're going to do better next time. And what we found is that even when we mess up, if we're honest, even when we fail, if we're honest, what we find is that we were much more nervous about their reaction than the reaction that we get. And they're ready to support us because we were honest with them and they know that they can trust the things that we're telling them. The 30-day trial. Cannot overstate enough the 30-day trial. It was the answer to change is scary. If you got an idea for saving lives, if you got something you want to try, we're going to do it for 30 days. The worst thing that happens is it doesn't work and we don't do it anymore. So the 30-day trial, just try it, track the results, and adjust as you need to, but you can try anything for 30 days. And teamwork makes the dream work. I don't have to explain it, just runs and I like it. Okay, all right. This is my last slide, but my most important slide because it has all my pets on it. So it's my chickens and my and my pups, and that's it.